This is Coda Radio, episode 151 for April 27th, 2015. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us dutifully every single week is our excellent host, who is most definitely established on the East Coast. Why, yes, it's Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Chris, I have survived an assassination attempt.
Whoa. Are you telling me there was a grand conspiracy to go after Michael Dominic, host of the Coda Radio program?
You know, from New Jersey, we call it a hit.
Hold on now. You're telling me there was a hit?
A hit put out on me.
Mr. Dominic, what happened? Break it down for me.
So, my lovely wife is packing up my bags for LinuxFest Northwest. You know, all the usual stuff you bring with.
Got to get you all ready for the big trip.
Your Linux Action Show hoodies.
Yeah, sure. Good.
Your
good.
bright orange Coda Radio t-shirt.
Nice.
Your black Coda Radio t-shirt.
Nice.
2 pairs of jeans.
Yeah.
Several pairs of banana hammock underwear.
Of course. Right.
And,
of course,
a paddle for spanking Chris Fisher.
Oh!
Now, and a MacBook Pro, because, you know, I was well ready to go. I was resting.
Yeah.
Getting my strength together.
Sure.
As I'm sleeping, minding my own business, 3 ninjas, or what I thought were ninjas, crawl into my bedroom. These ninjas, Chris, were dressed in black turtlenecks and skinny jeans.
And white sneakers?
And white sneakers.
I've seen the type.
They injected me with a disease. With the purpose of preventing me from going to LinuxFest Northwest.
Yeah, you came down with some sort of plague, and so you couldn't make it. It was very sad.
I was super upset. I was going to go anyway, and the wife was like, "I'll kill you. You'll die on the plane." Blah, 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 blah.
Aren't wives adorable?
I know. They're like, "What's the point of going? You're just going to get them sick."
You're mortal.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, she literally would not let me sleep until I agreed not to go. So
you were a missed figure. I lost. I think I started losing track of how many people asked about you around 100.
I felt really bad.
It's okay though. You know, Mr. Chase ended up not being able to make it either, and JT from BSD Now couldn't make it. So we had a couple people.
Okay.
But overall, we had
guys to make it. That's so.
What? We had. I mean, it was a hell of a party. I think it was our best. I think it was our best Linux Fest yet, and it was really nice for the crew that we did get together. I mean, for the first time, we got almost everybody together at the dinner table, which was pretty neat. So that was. In fact, let's see here. Do I have a picture of it? Man, there's so many great pictures from LinuxFest Northwest up on our Instagram feed, and here's one of them from dinner. There's a lot of the crew from dinner production, and there's Noah, of course, and myself, and Angela, and Matt down there, and Alan right there, and yeah. So it was a blast.
So despite these villains trying to keep me down, I was thinking, Chris, Chris does not know about this.
What's that?
I'm going to a Microsoft conference on what day is that? May 18th? And what is it? Does anybody know? In New York?
A Microsoft concert, not a concert, no.
No, conference. Trying to Google it as I speak because I don't keep a very organized calendar. Chat room, help. Help, chat room.
So yeah, I could search for it. Let's see, what should I search for? Microsoft?
Search for it.
You want to do a meetup?
Tour.
Is that what you're thinking? Microsoft?
I was thinking as an apology for the fans.
New York.
I know people are on the West Coast, and it's...
Geez, this is kind of ironically funny to find, because the first thing I get is Microsoft events for 2014. Microsoft needs to work on their SEO, huh?
So it's on the 18th. I have it on my, ironically, Mac calendar here.
Good.
It is at 1515 Broadway on West 44th Street, which if you're from New Jersey like me, might as well be Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it is a free conference if you can still get a ticket.
So is that the Dev Intersection one? On May 18th, let's see here.
May 18th, yeah. I mean,
No, that's Scottsdale. Never mind. Jeez, Microsoft's got other events going on the
there's
same
all
day.
kinds of crap.
Yeah.
This is called the Build Tour.
You know what we
That's
could
like-
do is you and I could sync offline and I could get all it in like a meetup. Because
Yeah.
we have that
Yeah.
meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting group and we could just organize it there. Because this is why we started to do that. Because it gets
We
kind of
should do
hairy.
that.
Yeah, okay.
Because what I'm thinking is, I think there's a pub almost right where they're having the tour. Just if anybody from the network wants to go grab a beer during it, whatever. Because let's be honest, Microsoft show, you're not going to see the sessions, right? You're just not. Like, love to hang with them.
I think that'd be really cool. All right. Well, yeah, we'll get the meetup organized for that. And one of these days, I'm going to be actually on the East Coast for BSDCan if that all works out. But I'll be up in Toronto, not in the States.
I'm not allowed in Canada anymore, Chris.
Oh yeah, and well after that one night, I don't blame them.
They're really weird about elk and moose.
Yeah, well, dude, when you do it right on the front lawn of the mayor, I think that's I don't think that's too unusual, really.
Well, do you think it was taunting the bounties with like lingerie? Was that probably where
I don't even know how you found a sexy bounty outfit. I don't even know how you found that. I guess that makes sense. Up in Canada, they'd probably have a thing. Yeah. Jeez. So we have so much to get into today. A lot of hoopla that I wanted to actually. I think we have this could be a new segment. We have some hoopla busting to do.
Ooh,
right?
Wait. Are people making shit up on the internet?
It's so funny. It's so funny how that happens. Yeah. So we have a little hoopla busting. Although I think there might be
Surface 4, Mac OS 10.
There's some hardcore speculation going on in some of the ARM forums right now that there's already an ARM MacBook in development. So haters gonna hate. Hate us because they ain't us, is what I'm saying.
That's almost certainly true.
I don't know what that means at all. I don't know what I'm talking about.
So let's just get right back on topic. So you know what the best part about being an Apple developer is, Chris?
Yeah, totally. What? No, I don't have any idea. I've never done it.
It's that magical feeling after like 3 to 6 months of work. You wait 2 to 17 weeks, and you get that email from Apple. We're sorry, your app cannot be accepted into the App Store.
Wah, wah.
Now, I've heard some things here, Chris, around the Pebble smartwatch and folks trying to support that.
Yeah, and this is a funny thing. So Apple has always been kind of weird about other products in any of their stores, physical stores or their online stores that compete with their own stuff. Wasn't it true that when the Apple Watch was announced, they began pulling Fitbits from the Apple Store?
Is that true?
I think that is a thing.
Really?
And so, CNAV US, an iOS app, made a little bit of noise over the weekend when their app, which has had Pebble smartwatch support for 2 years, and that support has been listed in the description of the app for 2 years, when they did an app update for a completely unrelated feature, and their app was then rejected because it listed... I forget how... Oh, here we go. This is how Apple puts it. Apps or metadata that mentions the name of any other mobile platform will be rejected. Here's the details. We've noticed that your app or its metadata contains irrelevant platform information. Providing future platform compatibility plans or other platform references is not appropriate for the App Store. And so, they go on to say, specifically, your app and app description declare support for the Pebble smartwatch. Please remove any instances of this information from your app and its marketing materials, including the application description, what's new info, previews, and screenshots. Now, how the hell, as somebody who owns a Pebble smartwatch, am I going to figure out what apps in the App Store support my watch without that stuff in the metadata or in the description? Mr. Dominic, how the hell?
So I'm a little confused. Is this actually real? Because I can't imagine like people buying a Pebble also considering an Apple Watch.
Yeah, so I guess on April 24th, Apple contacted the developers directly, and they decided to reverse their stance and approved the app immediately. So this is the story we hear every single time. App gets pulled for some arbitrary reason. Publicity gets made because the reason is super arbitrary and really ridiculous. Enough buzz happens, Apple jumps on it and fixes and immediately changes course. But yet it's the same kind of thing. And I go back to your opening line. As you sit down, you spend 3 to 6 months minimum, probably more, on an app than to have this happen. And in this case, this CNAV iOS app has had this for 2 years. For 2 years. They're sitting back now. They think we have a nice, stable revenue base. We've got a good customer base in iOS. We've been in there for 2 years. We have a good niche. Nobody else is really doing this kind of stuff. These guys over at Pocket Mariner really have a great app for this kind of thing. And they think they've got it made, and then all of a sudden one day, boom, they're cut off. And it's thankfully, because they're a popular app, because there's not a million of these ones, they got some attention.
Well, it's the old thing where the guidelines say don't go cry to the press, but in fact, literally the best thing you can do is go cry to the press.
Yeah. And then things get cleaned up, and there you go.
I don't want to spend too much time on this, right? Because you have to be a little fair here, right? There are probably dozens of these app review guys, and everybody has a bad day. Probably. Everybody has a bad day, right? Sometimes you wake up and you're just like, I'm going to be a jerk today. And I feel like because this seems really dumb. Right?
Here's what I think. You want to hear my theory?
Go ahead.
This is totally just me just being a Sunday morning quarterback, whatever that term is. That Monday morning.
Monday morning. Yeah.
I'm not allowed to make sports references. Okay.
You're really not.
Yeah. Here's what I think. I think these guys must have their jobs on the line. I bet if something gets in, like a boobie or a vagina or a dick, if that gets into the App Store, I bet somebody loses their job. And so
I was sure of that.
Otherwise, why would these guys go to these lengths? And so these guys who are way down in the food chain are having to make these kinds of critical decisions on behalf of developers or on behalf of Apple that affect developers because their jobs have got to be on the line if they're doing this kind of stuff. And then whenever it goes above their head, stuff gets corrected. But it seems to me a new policy comes down from on high that says, hear ye, Apple now makes a watch, ergo anything that is a watch-like thing is now banned because we compete with that. And it's to them, it seems to be very binary. Does it compete with an Apple product? If answer is yes, then app is rejected because, my God, if I say no, then it's my ass on the line.
Okay, but I feel like there's a big difference between, a giant basilisk popping out in the middle of the screen, and you know what I mean by basilisk, guys. That one was for you, Chris.
Thank you.
Mentioning the Pebble smartwatch, right? I feel like you get a talking to for the latter if it's really not allowed, and you get straight up fired for the first. Can't you see that there's a difference, right? You're saying you don't think that's the case?
No, I think it's sort of. Again, it's my ass. Don't protect the developers. It's not worth it. Doesn't matter if they've been around for 2 years. Doesn't matter if they make a fantastic product that's extremely needed. Doesn't matter if customers need to know if it supports their watches, even though customers have spent money on that watch. Even though customers have bought the Pebble smartwatch because it's the only other smartwatch on the market that works with iOS. Despite all of that, they don't give a shit, and they still block the app because Apple doesn't care about their customers. They don't care about the developers. Wow. Or they care too much about the customers, and they think they're being super protective, and they really don't give a crap about the developers. I can't tell which one it is.
So did they give you, Pop Rocks and Coke all weekend?
I know, right? No, listen. How can you be sitting on the other end of this call and be defending this?
No, it's not defending, but this seems like a non-story, right? It's, oh my God, Apple did a stupid rejection.
I disagree. I could see that. And I could see how this kind of story leads to fatigue on this kind of story. I think the fact that it is almost Q2, end of Q2, almost Q3, whatever, of 2015. We're in 2015,
right.
And this today is still a problem. Today is still an issue. Apple still has their head so far up their ass that they're crushing their development community. It's just, it is so funny to watch Apple turn into the next IBM. It's great.
So here's the problem, Chris. This happens every day to hundreds of apps, right? The difference is most of those apps are written by college kids or people who don't, or maybe not college kids, maybe that's being dismissive. People who just don't have any friends in journalism, any platform, any way to cleverly complain, right? I guess my counter to you is if we spent all our time complaining about all the dumb things Apple does to its development community, that is literally all we would talk about, right?
I know. I just feel like this particular thing, it's got to change.
There is one dumb thing, and we'll get off the Apple train in a second.
Okay.
The guidelines for iWatch apps. Did you happen to read the what languages are permitted? How it's phrased?
No.
It is not Objective-C or Swift. It is Swift or Objective-C and Swift, which is a huge that little comma makes a big old difference.
Mr. Dominic, I got a great pro tip. If you want to come out with a new development language and you want to make sure people adopt it, I have a great way to do it. Yeah.
Make it mandatory?
Yeah. Turns out.
I think there's been a little more resistance. I mean, you could listen to a number of Apple podcasts and everybody kind of, very excited about Swift. Oh, so you're doing your project in Swift?
Right.
No, it's production, and I don't want my client to sue me.
I can kind of understand when you have a brand new platform like the Apple Watch. Like, that's the time to say make it Swift, because that gives them flexibility down the road. So
yeah, it definitely it's interesting though how I guess it's a reminder of the level of control they have, where they can just say, "Oh yeah, no, you're doing it in Swift." Period. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just because. Oh yeah, the API exists in Objective-C. But
do you find it to be fascinating too that the reports coming in that the third-party apps are almost unbearably slow? I think it was John Gruber that said he actually never got one of them to finish loading.
I'm sorry, Bluetooth isn't fast?
Yeah, isn't that weird?
That's shocking.
But that seems almost unbelievably bad to me.
But no, that seems obvious to me. What would you expect? Look at the design schematic of the device. It communicates over Bluetooth.
Yeah, it loads the app in over Bluetooth and then
Right.
projects it essentially.
And there's not enough processing power on the watch itself to allow for any kind of like animations. Forget about vectors, just any animations, right? So you're talking about sending static images, which most people are, between the phone to the watch. In fact, there's a whole bunch of tutorials you can go read from developers because they want a custom UI on how they literally do their UI on the phone, process that on the phone, render it into a UI image, which is the just generic image class on Cocoa Touch, and send it over to the watch. That whole process is, for lack of a better term, really stupid.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and I mean, I when I hear people like John Gruber say, "I never even got one to work," I think to myself, okay, why wasn't that in some of the reviews?
Well, because the developers who in the reviews. I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for the developers who worked on this, right? Because they only got to work on a simulator, and the simulator is a land of lies, basically, right?
That's very true. Yeah, I'm not blaming the developers. I'm blaming the reviewers who failed. John, I didn't read John Gruber's review word for word. I kind of skimmed it, but I'm pretty sure I didn't see him mention in his review he failed to ever launch a third-party app. That seems like I'll say a lot of things about Android Wear compared to Apple Watch, but I'll tell you what, I do have third-party apps that launch.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to believe that no third-party apps could launch.
He said he said they wouldn't launch. He just gave up waiting for them. He got too impatient. 1 to 2 minutes for some of them.
Yeah, so that's super crappy.
I can't believe they shipped it like that. I mean, the iPhone didn't ship with apps. I'm just surprised that they did that.
It is, the whole wearables thing just isn't ready yet. It's not ready for prime time. It needs another year. 2016 will be a lot better. And I'm not just defending Apple, because I don't particularly care for the iWatch at its current juncture.
Yeah.
I'm saying the whole thing, right? Android Wear is not great either. The Microsoft Band is a joke at this point.
Well, I have a response, but first, why don't let's shift gears, and we'll start getting into more of our hoopla. But first, I want to talk about Linux Academy, the first sponsor of the Coda Radio program this week. And Linux Academy just had a huge content update recently. And I've been telling you a little bit about it. I went through and I was reviewing it. I got a link to the video. I think it's up on their YouTube channel too, so you can check out Linux Academy. But a super nice batch of new content coming in there. But I think there's a few things that I myself, being rather busy these days with LinuxFest and all these kinds of things, a couple of new things they've added that would appeal to somebody like myself. Number one, and first and foremost, I've got to say I love their new Nugget system. I mean, they've introduced a ton of large-scale content, so I don't want to minimize that. But for somebody like me right now, I like being able to get just dip in, get a little bit of knowledge, and then jump out. And that's what's great about their new Nugget system. They're available at the top navigation menu when you log in, and they're standalone video how-tos that they don't really fit in a major course, or maybe even a specific training path necessarily, but they're everyday tasks that you're going to encounter on a regular basis. So it's really nice to refresh yourself on this, or maybe learn a better, efficient way to do some of these everyday tasks. And that's always surprising when I learn a new way to do something I've even done for a decade. So they say also that they're looking for requests for new nuggets as well, which I think that's pretty awesome. And I think one thing that you might be interested in now, if you've become a member of Linux Academy, and you figured it out, yeah, it really is everything Chris has talked about and more. That's the funny thing, too, isn't it? Is once you got in there, you realize it's even better than I've been talking about. That's the incredible thing. I love that. I love that when that happens. So I want to tell you about the Founders Club. There's a lot of students who help contribute to make Linux Academy better. Their community is extremely awesome. You got a lot of it's full of you guys, too, which we have a great community. And you know who you are. You are the person who wants to access new content and features before they're released. Maybe you could help Linux Academy do some Q&A type work. Well, some users are ready to jump in even before the courseware is 100% complete, maybe to help iron some of that out. So for those dedicated users, Linux Academy is announcing the Founders Club. You get early access to content as it's being developed. You get access to the site beta features as they're being developed. This is really cool because they have a very unique and awesome educational platform. Major Linux Academy swag, including a Founders Club shirt, hoodie, pinhead, and the penguin plush, and the new stress ball. That's really cool. And the Founders Club badge in the community and profile. The ability, though, I think this was really cool, and this is what I would get in there for. The ability to vote on what open source projects will receive the new Linux Academy $5,000 open source grant. I told you about that last week. And now when you become part of the Founders Club, you get to vote on which projects get that grant money. Proceeds will help go towards new Linux Academy Foundation open source grants as well. If you're not interested, don't worry. If you're not interested in the Founders Club, you'll still get unlimited access to all Linux Academy content, and you won't have to access it until it's 100% completed, which is just great for a lot of you. So go check it out, and don't forget they have that new open source grant program. They're going to give $5,000 away to the open source project that gets voted on. Just to be eligible, it has to be an open source project with an open source license. Also, the Red Hat Certified Services, or what's the anybody know RHCSA? Systems Administration, I would assume, but I'm not positive on that. They've got a new course on that's being released April 26th, so it should be out yesterday, but I haven't logged in today. They have DevOps Essentials available right now. 50 new video nuggets that I was talking about, those are available right now. The AWS CSA Pro available for the Founders Club members starting on May 15th, and everyone else will get it on June 15th. That's a great course. Oh, man, and LPIC 201 will be available in July. Wow, the 201 course, that's awesome. That's really great for those looking to get a Linux gig out there. Go check it out. More content on the way. Upcoming certifications are going to be announced as part of the roadmap very soon, so check that out. And Founders Club are going to have access to all that stuff while it's under development. That Founders Club is going to be awesome if you become a Linux Academy Pro. Go over to linuxacademy.com/coders. That'll get you the Coder Radio discount. linuxacademy.com/coders. Linux Academy is the premier platform to learn some of the best technology out there based around open source, Linux, and the whole stack. AWS, all of it. If it's some of the best stuff out there right now, Linux Academy has courseware on everything from doing backups with rsync to building the most awesome Nginx forwarding load balancing monster you can imagine. linuxacademy.com/coders to get the Coder Radio discount, and a really big thank you, Linux Academy. Go check out all of their amazing video content, audio content, downloadable comprehensive study guides, practice exam, detailed notes, step-by-step instructions, time estimations, all of it, and their virtual infrastructure is super slick. They custom built all of it with your own Linux config from 7+ Linux distributions. linuxacademy.com/coders. Thanks, Linux Academy. Mr. Dominic, I'm not so sure I completely agree on your assessment of Android Wear, but we do not have to belabor the point. It is probably not all of that interesting to all of the audience, I suppose. But I've enjoyed my R watch. I'll just leave it at that. I have the LG Watch R. I've liked it quite a bit. I have it in always-on mode these days, which is very nice. And I would just leave it at that. I won't belabor the point.
Fair enough.
Hey, I wanted to read an email that we got into the show from Brian in regards to open source as a trap laptop discussion we had a couple of weeks ago. That generated some feedback, and we never really got to talk too much about it because we've been busy. So I wanted to touch on Brian. He says, hey, Mike and Chris, I'm a bit behind, but today I was listening to the open source as a trap, and you guys are going on about your laptop discussion. I thought as a person who purchased the Dell 2012 XPS 13, the Sputnik edition, and have been using Ubuntu for the past 4 years exclusively, I previously was on an Asus ZenBook, I have something interesting to add to the discussion. I'll cut to the chase. This week, I ordered a new replacement laptop due to many of the issues you discussed above. Battery life being crappy, even after he tweaked it. Wi-Fi was somewhat unusable if he got too much crazy into the power savings. So he went ahead and purchased, wait for it, a Retina MacBook Pro 13-inch. It's interesting to hear Mike talk about it, about his frustration with the Mac when I'm having the exact experience with Ubuntu and looking for a more stable experience. I have been using a Mac Pro at work for the past 4 years exclusively and recently moved to Yosemite, and I've had none of the issues people are describing. What I think it comes down to is your experience with these products. For me, my work experience has been so good, and I've had little annoyances with a laptop purchase to run Linux. And I had so little annoyances with a laptop purchase to run Linux that it pushed me to a Mac platform. I cannot imagine going back to a Windows at this point in time. So for me, the main factor is the hardware compatibility. That's just my 2 cents, though. So he's saying it all depends on the hardware. And so, Mike, 2 weeks ago, we switched my wife Angela from Mac OS over to Linux. Can you believe it? And
did you do elementary?
We actually were going to start with elementary, but elementary has some problems getting loaded on the MacBook without a lot of extra work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, kind of a bummer. And so then we decided to go with Arch, of course, because, why not? And when we loaded Arch on there, she liked it quite a bit. But I have to say, I completely agree with viewer Brian here. What a pain in my donkey that was. I cannot describe, just little tweaks here, all these little things you have to do,
right.
Things not quite right. In fact, it was so frustrating that a couple days into it, we put the MacBook Pro up on eBay and sold it and bought her a Lenovo Yoga 3 ThinkPad. And I got to say, that's a hell of a machine. The audience has been saying go ThinkPad for a long time, as you know.
Really, the ThinkPad, huh?
The Yoga 3, man, the Yoga 3. Go Google that thing. It is so you have to have a binary driver loaded if you want to use the Wi-Fi it comes with, the Broadcom Wi-Fi.
Right.
If you replace the Wi-Fi with an Intel chip, then it is zero hassle. It comes with a button on the side of the Yoga 3 that you hold in with a pen, and that disables Secure Boot, that disables UEFI. You just stick a Linux thumbstick in there, it boots off of it, it completely installs it, it goes into old BIOS mode, so there's no UEFI hassle. It's super slick, and then Ubuntu is just a couple of clicks, really quick to get that Broadcom wireless going, and you're up and running. So now we have her under Arch on a Yoga 3 machine, running the GNOME 3 desktop, and she loves it. And it is a solid machine. It's actually thinner than the new MacBook, or lighter. I can't remember if it's thinner or lighter. It's one of them. The screen completely flips around, so you can use it as a tablet, which is actually less of a gimmick than I expected.
Right.
And she's actually digging on the fact that it's a touchscreen. She actually is, which is one of her biggest surprises, is she's enjoying it. Now, if you run it with Windows, it works pretty good as a Metro device too, I suppose. And the keyboard seems to be pretty solid. Trackpad seems to be pretty darn good. And it was like $900.
Damn.
From Best Buy. We got it at Best Buy because we were doing the reload right then. Yeah, it's super thin. And the other weird thing?
What's that?
Charges over USB. There's no regular power adapter. It's a USB port. It's got this one yellow USB port that is that you use for charging on it.
Right. That's weird. People keep saying about the ThinkPads, the Lenovo's.
Can I tell you something? If I could do it over again, I would not buy my XPS. I would buy this instead.
What?
Yeah, I wouldn't get it. So the Linux just, it's not ready for 4K yet. It's doable, and I'm glad I have it for testing. But I don't like having it for my daily driver. It's too frustrating. And this, you can get this with a really beautiful 1080p screen. It's on when you get like what is this, 13-inch, 14-inch laptop? Yeah, 13.3-inch laptop at 1080p. That is so slick looking. It's so tight, but yet everything scales great. And and 1080p is not that much work for an Iris 5500 graphics GPU. So you can actually play real games on it, and you cannot do that under 4K with the same graphics chip. And so this is such a nice machine and so light. And she's getting about 6 to 7 hours of battery life under Linux right now. And it has decent sound, and it's very, very, very light and very solid. It's not like MacBook solid, but it's the next best build for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So there you go, and that works great. It's a very nice laptop, and she likes it a lot, and I'm super jealous. Now I'm totally jealous of my wife's laptop. You ever get that? You ever get your wife something, and then you're jealous of her gear?
Yeah.
What was it?
What the hell did I get her? Oh, it was a laptop. A couple years ago, I got her this really, really, and I'm not a big Samsung person, but this really souped-up Samsung gaming laptop. And I'm sitting there with my little MacBook Air at the time, and I'm like, because we were both playing WoW and the air just couldn't handle it. The air was
Yep.
like, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's totally my situation now. Is
Yeah.
like my wife can play games on her laptop, and I really can't play any games on my Dell at all. And so I'm just like, oh, I'm like, maybe she won't want it after a while, and I'll take it.
But it's funny because I kind of have been looking. I'm not really ready to buy. I actually thought I wanted the new XPS 13. But the more I read about it, the more people aren't so in love with it.
Yeah, it's not bad, but
it's okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd say it's good. It's good. It's not great. It's good.
right.
I mean, I probably would be very happy with it if I hadn't had the Yoga.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the Yoga apparently comes in orange, so that's a feature.
She's not. Yeah, she doesn't have the Pro. Chat room's asking. She just has the regular Yoga 3, not the Yoga 3 Pro. I don't even know what the difference is. Maybe like i7. She has an I think it has an i5 processor. It's really nice. Maybe I would get the Pro. I don't know what the difference is, but hopefully eventually
One
it'll
day.
get better. Yeah. It does.
Right.
But I give it a hearty recommendation. That is for sure. All right. Well, moving on, Mr. Dominic, we have an email that came into the show. Actually, I take it back. It was a Coda Radio subreddit post. Oh! And I met somebody at. You know what? I made a couple of contacts, and one I think we're going to want to bring on and chat with at some point in the future at LinuxFest Northwest. So I'll tell you about that maybe after the show. I'm looking forward to it.
I am intrigued. And this is what do they? This is like a teaser because you know what? No one's going to hear what we say.
No, I know. Well, we might say it on the live stream.
Well, those guys are always around anyway. And the NSA will know. So.
Also, I recommend you watch this week's episode of Linux Action Show. I had 2 different conversations with 2 different gentlemen at Microsoft involved with open source stuff. Some crazy stuff. I think he said something like 22% of the VMs that run on Azure are running Ubuntu.
Yeah. Aren't they running more Linux or Unix based VMs than Windows?
Yeah.
I thought that was true.
And just 22% are Ubuntu. And I said, so is that like a million? And he laughed hard. And I said, is that like a few million? And he continued to laugh. And I said, is that like many million? And he said, it's many, 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 many millions.
Yeah, Azure's huge, dude.
Many millions. When Ubuntu came out the other day and said 25 million Ubuntu installations, and we were all like, yeah, right. And then this guy's laughing, saying, oh, it's many, many millions. I'm like, geez, maybe he has like 20 million alone. I mean, who knows he laughed when I said a million. Like, he thought that was a laughable number.
People aren't necessarily, with these cloud solutions, doing big boxes, right? They're doing a lot of very, very small boxes.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes sometimes on the back end, they'll spin up an entire VM and only expose one application. So, like, they'll do Active Directory as a service. To accomplish that, they'll spin up an entire VM of Windows and only expose the Active Directory service.
But it's weird, right? Because one thing, and this is totally off topic, but we keep talking about Docker and containers on the show, and finally other people got on board with that. Do you consider a container, does that count? I don't count it, right? So if I have an instance, like a KVM instance, and then Docker and like 3 containers on it, to me that's one instance.
Yeah, Docker, I view that as more as isolated applications, not
right.
virtual
I view it
machines.
as app containers, which is I know technically what it is, but it's interesting because I was talking to somebody a couple weeks back, and there seems to be a lot of confusion between VMs and containers.
Yeah.
Like conflating containers as just another form of VM, and it's not, right? Like 99% of the time, you're using a VM, and then in the VM you have a number of containers.
See, I blame Microsoft. Microsoft is muddying the waters.
And you're like, I blame Microsoft.
No, I'll tell you why. I know, right? I know, right? I'll give you. I don't know if I'll be able to find the exact verbiage, but because Microsoft is calling containers virtualization in their documentation.
That's not what they are. It's not virtualized.
And in their discussion on getting Docker to run on the new Windows server, they talk about how Dockers run inside virtual containers. Now, what the is a virtualized container? I don't know what a virtualized container is to me, but it sounds like a VM that's running like maybe a tiny instance of Linux that then runs the Docker applications inside that tiny Linux instance in a Hyper-V virtual machine.
I wouldn't think of it that way. I assume they're just spinning you up a quick like Ubuntu VM, installing Docker.
But that's not a container. That's a virtual machine.
Well, how is this different than me going into DO like I do all the freaking time?
Right, but when you go to DO, you spin up an Ubuntu server, and you could launch 100 Docker instances on that virtual server, right? But you could also like if you were really down to the metal, if you were DO and you were directly delivering applications, you would have a bare metal Ubuntu server, and you would run the Docker instances on that bare metal server. That would be the bare metal performance, right? But in the Windows scenario, you will always have to have a virtualizer between the operating system and the container.
I thought they were trying to work with Docker to get more like Windows native compatibility going. So
I think there is some of that too. I think there is some of that. Like you can run Windows apps in there too, and that maybe doesn't use virtualization. But when I was reading up on how to run the Linux apps in a container on Windows, it looked to me, okay, listen to this. The Docker engine uses Linux-specific kernel features. So to run it on Windows, we need to use a lightweight virtual machine. You use the Windows Docker client to control the virtualized Docker engine to build, run, and manage Docker containers. So when you use Docker under Windows, it's virtualization. And why do I bring this up? Because this is confusing people to hell, I think. This is confusing. It sounds like...
Why is this confusing?
Because if you read that, it sounds like containers are virtualized.
I think what they're trying to say is that we're using our proprietary Hyper-V virtualization instead of KVM or one of the other standard Unix ones.
No, because if you ran a container on a Linux box, there is no KVM or any virtualization involved.
Because you don't have to, because Docker is a native Linux app.
Right. So
but
containers on Windows are not the same thing as containers on Linux. They're confusing the term, I think.
Not necessarily. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're trying to cover. You're right. They're trying to kind of nicely paste over the fact that this doesn't work well on Windows, right? That it's like running an ASP.NET app on a Linux server.
Yeah.
You can do it. It's going to suck, right? Like it's hard. Maybe not hard. Maybe annoying is more the right way to say that. Why is that bad? I mean, I guess I'm not understanding
I feel
why
like
this is even.
It's not necessarily a bad thing because, like you pointed out, there is a perfectly legitimate use case where you would want to spin up containers inside a virtual machine. And that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But it is definitely not this. It is definitely in terms of one-to-one features and performance ratio, the Windows version is decidedly...
anything in a VM is slower, right? Yeah. That's like running, me popping open VMware or use Visual Studio. Of course, it's going to suck.
I wish Microsoft, A, would have a better solution for this, and B, wasn't confusing people, because I am also noticing that people are confusing containerization, virtualization, and what's funny to me is it's happening more today than it seemed to be happening when containerization was becoming a new concept to the mass public. It seems to be worse today, and the only thing I can figure is, as Windows servers development... Yeah.
Containerization is super simple, right? Let's just run through the difference real quick, and I'm going to boil it down to like the dumb first grader concept. A VM is, I have a shoebox. I want it to be a different shoebox. So in my shoebox, I'm creating another shoebox that's a little smaller but has the properties of my other shoebox. I don't know, Chris, you know anything about shoes? Maybe my original box is an Adidas. I am VMing a Nike shoebox.
That'd be nice.
That's a VM. Containerization is I have my Adidas shoebox, and I'm putting little rulers to make divisions for different, maybe I'm not storing shoes, maybe I'm storing marbles or money or cocaine, whatever. Like I'm creating divisions within the original shoebox. If you're on now this is where it gets screwed up, right? Because what Chris is saying is on Windows, that original shoebox cannot have the divisions. You have to have the Nike VM first, right? So Windows can't do Docker without, currently, to date, this will probably change because I know, I'm pretty sure it's true that Docker is working with Microsoft. I know I read it somewhere.
Oh yeah, no, in fact, this documentation I'm reading to you, it comes from docs.docker.com.
Right, so very, very soon this will all be bullshit, and Docker will run natively on Windows, just like it runs natively on
I don't think so. I don't think so. See, I think Microsoft once again, they missed the boat on a massive trend that helps with cloud computing.
You can't afford to miss this. Containerization is too big, because everybody does it. People are doing it and don't know they're doing it.
Well, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get some Windows-based container apps, and there'll be a really small, hundreds of them, and then you're going to have millions of Linux-based ones, because the Linux ones have already got a year head start. There's already it's so and honestly, Linux apps are more conducive to this kind of containerization and portability. So it's going to be more, and also this is more conducive to cloud deployments, which is where there's more Linux to begin with. So there's always going to be more containerization using Linux technology, which means there's always going to be more on the Windows side having to use virtualization. It's Microsoft missing the boat and then sort of making up for it. The only thing native about it will be the ones that run under Windows, and it's fine. It's not. It's fine. It's just kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and also I'm aware that my example wasn't great. So
here's the main. This is the way I describe it to people. Think of a container as what really is happening is the kernel is isolating those processes out from the rest of the system. The kernel is managing that. It's tagging those processes as being independent from the rest of the system, and therefore the two may never talk. A virtualizer is completely virtualizing, or even a hypervisor is the network card, the I/O controller, the display adapter. All of that is completely being faked out to the operating system, and the operating system in a lot of cases thinks it's talking to real hardware, or is at least aware that it's being hypervised and is talking to virtual hardware, whereas a container application talks directly to your hardware through the kernel using the same exact paths that all the other applications on the system do, because they're actually running through the kernel of your host system.
Exactly. And the point I was trying to make is there's no layer of indirection with a container.
Yes.
Where with a VM, there's absolutely indirection, right? Because
that
you have
virtual hardware
layers.
Abstraction layer.
Right.
And so that's why the performance difference is better under Docker or under any kind of container technology, and that's why if you want to deploy applications and you want to have a backend infrastructure, you can have way more users on a system that's set up with containers than virtual machines, because you have a lot more resources available.
So I wonder, Chris, if we just put like a little call out to our very few but very proud .NET developers in the audience. Do you guys care? I feel like. I feel just kind of going along with your argument, maybe Microsoft doesn't, like they're doing this because they have to follow because Linux is incredibly popular on Azure. But actually that's stupid because it does work on Linux on Azure. So that's a whole weird situation.
I think Microsoft sees Docker becoming a way you distribute software for servers.
Yeah, I don't understand what. I guess I'm trying to think of the scenario where I would want to run Docker on Windows directly, and I'm having a hard time coming up with the case. And maybe it's because I'm not a .NET guy, at least not on the back end.
I could see for internal uses, right, deploying applications across a farm of Windows servers, keep things consistent. Maybe, development, so that way everybody's working from the same development environment, perhaps. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but that solution, those docs, that seems pretty jank, like that. I can't imagine wanting to do that in production yet.
Yeah, and not to mention, Windows already kind of has ways of doing this with MSI files and group policy, and there are other methods out there. They're not great, they're not elegant, they're not cross-company and cross-enterprise, but yeah. You know what I think it is I think Microsoft is a little worried that, Windows is not a super compelling server platform for, I hate being such a D-bag, but cloud deployments. It's just really not. It's pretty compelling for on-premises. It really is, with Active Directory and the way you can simply join Windows clients to that domain, and then all of the authentication is shared, and you can integrate that in with an intranet if you want. It is a very good on-premises solution. All of those benefits, though, really do not apply at all to server deployments out in the cloud.
Yeah, the way I use Docker, I can't imagine doing that on Windows at the moment.
Right.
Yeah. It's a little unfair, and I would actually ask if there's any Microsoft employees listening in.
Well, you know what? And to bring it back a little bit,
about it? Yeah.
I would point out one of the reasons that Docker became so popular on Linux is it solves a fundamental issue that Windows doesn't face. Fragmentation, distribution fragmentation is
things are weird.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one Windows, right? There's one Windows server to worry about, really. If you're writing an application, sure, there's multiple SKUs of it, but if you're from an application development standpoint, there's one Windows server.
Well, .NET is .NET is .NET is .NET, as long as it's the same version.
Right. But not so much on Linux, and so containerization sort of solves that. That also is another reason why it got so much more momentum under Linux, and I think maybe why Microsoft didn't see it as a direct requirement for Windows Server until they really saw that, it's more than just taking care of that fragmentation problem. It's also about software being distributed directly by vendors and developers sharing containers in the Docker Hub system. And then they realized, there's an ecosystem here that we need to be part of.
I think part of it is the same thing we always come back to with Microsoft and their tools. They have this huge problem of being big and having legacy. And maybe it feels, and this is maybe a little bit of a devil's advocacy thing here, maybe it feels like a weird half stuff, because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like a weird half sort of supported kind of thing, because they do have to support, decades of legacy, and no one else does, or no one else cares to. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and they are realizing that, okay, our bread is very much being buttered by services. And there's an operating system out there that is completely free and very good for services. And so I think Microsoft's approach is we need to be able to do everything they can do at least and do some things better. And so if they can do Docker, even if we can't be the best at it right now, we've got to be able to do it.
Like, I could see a case where Windows Server makes sense, like you were saying, like a small business, like a small little store, just have a little Exchange server.
Yeah, man. I mean, to be honest with you, if I had a handful of clients run a Windows Server 10 with Docker, I would probably use that to manage some of their applications to make my life easier. Right,
especially if I was like the independent vendor. Being able to just use Docker to quickly update whatever I need to update. I could see it.
Yeah.
Chris, we've been too much in the Apple/Linux, Unixy kind of world.
And if Docker was truly a solution for Windows where I could run an entire Windows application stack, like, let's just say like vendor, or let's just say client XYZ has some really crazy esoteric customer management system or internal application that maybe it's even like really old. If I could keep that application protected in a Docker container while continuing to install Windows updates on the underlying server OS, that would be enough of a use right there for me.
Super scary though.
Yeah, for sure, security-wise. But so many Windows servers out there do not get patched because Windows updates will break compatibility with the legacy application. So they just, they just say, okay, well, this box we don't patch.
You still have a surface area of attack there.
Yeah, of course, but at least the OS in a Docker world, in a container world, so the application, yes, still vulnerable, still exposed, but it's just the application, whereas the underlying OS would be at least getting patched in that scenario.
See, I almost would rather not have that option for people, so that, although I would assume that they would do the right thing, and I would be wrong almost every time.
Well, I tell you what happens today is they just don't patch the entire computer.
They just don't patch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then on the Windows environment, that'll eventually catch up to you, because then pretty soon, if you have an old enough computer, it starts dragging down the overall feature set that your entire Active Directory can support. And then you start, maybe you don't turn the encryption up one level higher, or you don't turn on SMB signing, or you start making all these little compromises because that old rig that runs it runs our number one piece of software. So if that breaks, well, we don't have a business, so we don't update. And I don't think that's just kind of common. I would argue almost every business with more than about 20 people has that.
See, when I talk to .NET developers that I am acquainted with, it always seems like the problem they have is a legacy. Always. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Windows network nightmare. That's what burns me out so bad working on Windows networks.
Yeah, I really think one day we should get like one of the MVPs or one of the .NET people on here to kind of not defend, but kind of explain
from their perspective. Because to me, it just sounds like a bunch of scary legacy, potentially insecure stuff that I would much rather avoid, given the options. Then again, like we've said before, sometimes you can bury yourself in a fortress of legacy and become the expert on it.
Having said that, I ship Rails apps, so they're super secure. Don't worry about it.
All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, let me tell you about something fantastic. That's our next sponsor on the Coder Radio program. That's DigitalOcean. That's where I go to build my infrastructure on demand now. I feel a bit like a baller. Like, yeah, I got data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, and Germany. Yeah, I just spin up.
Let me just spin this up in Singapore. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'll do it in less than 55 seconds. That's right. I'm talking about DigitalOcean, a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to get your own cloud server. And I love the fact that is all actual factual truth. Nobody gets this done faster. Nobody has a better UI, and you can get HTML5 access right to the console of the rig you're setting up, which is so nice for remote troubleshooting. And you get started in less than 55 seconds. Pricing plans start at only $5 a month. $5 a month for 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, one CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. A terabyte of transfer, you guys. That's nuts. A terabyte. And I'd never get close to that ever. And I've got several droplets now. One dedicated to Minecraft, even which I beefed up with some more memory. One that, oh man, was so crazy essential at LinuxFest this weekend, syncing art assets between Noah's OBS production rig and my laptop. So critical, and knowing that I could absolutely rely on DigitalOcean for that up to the second dependability is great. So go over to DigitalOcean and use our promo code CODERDIGITAL when you check out, or it's not really a checkout. You just apply it to your account. That'll give you a $10 credit. You can try out that $5 rig 2 months for free when you use the promo code just for the Coder Radio program, Coder Digital. That supports the show, but it'll get you that $10 promo as well. And you got to check out that interface while you're over there. I'm showing you a video if you're looking on the video version right now of the show, but go over to DigitalOcean, try it out for yourself. It is crazy intuitive. It's the best control panel you'll ever use for anything like this. And the best part is they just released the new version of their API that makes this even better. Power users can replicate the functionality of this awesome control panel with that API. There's tons of apps that take advantage of that. There's ways to build it into your update systems. You go to take an update, you do a snapshot on your DigitalOcean droplet first. It's very slick. It's the best out there, and they just made it even better. Speaking of getting even better, DigitalOcean just opened a brand new data center up in Germany, and this is a super critical one if you want to get out there. Not only do they have 40 gigabit E connections to each hypervisor, 40 gigabit to each one. So you're going to get probably, I think if that breaks down, I think they talk about it here in this post, you essentially get like a gigabit to your hypervisor. That's nuts. Plus, they have the fastest yet SSDs. But I think the best part is its placement. It's on the German Commercial Internet Exchange. That's the largest exchange by worldwide peak traffic, and in that region also serves Germany's neighboring countries with unparalleled connectivity and speeds. So I think that is a great place. Also, it meets the region that they have the data center in, meets the safe harbor regulations for storing data. So that might be particularly of note to some of you. Go over to DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code CODERDIGITAL. Get that $10 credit. Try that $5 rig out. They got Core OS, which is great. They've got FreeBSD now. They got Ubuntu, which is what all I've done. I've got one Arch rig still, and I love it. And then I've got all Ubuntu 14.04 droplets. I'm just telling you, 14.04, it's just such a great LTS Cloud OS. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code CODERDIGITAL. Get a $10 credit. Try out a rig for a couple of months and support our show. It is a lot of fun. From Minecraft to Mumble to the back-end infrastructure for your next big app. DigitalOcean's got it. DigitalOcean.com, Coder Digital. Okay, Mr. Dominic. So we had a topic that came in from Jed, who I had a great time with at LinuxFest. You would really like Jed. First of all, he has a very fancy kilt and very nice socks.
See, when I wear it, they just call it a skirt and they throw things at me. But we'll let it go. We'll just keep going.
Jed has perhaps the ballerest of all bikes you've ever seen. I mean, it's pretty damn impressive. He's got a cargo carrying platform mounted to the front of his bike, and I may or may not sometimes carry beer in it. I cannot confirm that, but they're from time to time. So Jed was at LinuxFest Northwest. He was one of the guys that was looking for you. Lots of people.
I'm sorry.
I know. And Jed and I, we had a moment. Then he came over and took it out on me by shooting me with...
Yes.
Yeah, he did. Here, so I want to... This here is a picture of Jed. And see, if you look in the background there, Mr. Dom, I don't know if you're watching the video version, you can see that Jed has a carrying platform on his bike. Pretty respectable. And so he's Memoc Proxy in the Coder Radio subreddit. And he submitted this thread. And he says,
the Java hate one.
Why do you not like Java? I've put up with a fair amount of Java through my career. When I switched from Java to PHP, I was shocked at the vague string-based nature of everything. But then I started to recall my years of Perl programming. The glory of Java is type safety above all else. If you can't add more specifically to your language, it doesn't have enough keywords. So it goes on and on. Now, you like to always touch on poor Java. Before I let you get into that, I wanted to talk about Ninja Aaron's point. He says, I'm biased against Java, and I've never written a single line of it.
Fantastic. That's what I like to hear.
Probably has to do with the fact that the apps I've used, which were written in Java, were enormous, slow, and ugly. I've mostly had to use Java apps at work, and it is awful. I sort of associate Java with awful corporate applications. But I'm not a serious programmer. I'm a linguist who uses programming to analyze data. So, Mr. Dominic, why do you hate Java so much? We talk about it a lot. We bash it a lot. We've had now this user support thread in here. We see people in here also talking about why they hate Java. And I got to tell you, I think Java doesn't get enough respect. I think when a language has been around for this long, has been this useful, has changed hands, and this many people have poked at it, I think by its very nature, it deserves respect. It is our elder. What do you think?
I'm gonna do something a little weird here. I'm gonna compare Java to PHP, and Java and PHP have a very similar problem, right? They're old, they've been changed too many times, and people have written a lot of shitty code in each of them. So what happens is when you're coming into any, I would challenge you to go pick any programming language you like, inherit a legacy project, and tell me that the code isn't crap.
Yeah, sure.
Even if the code is good, just by virtue of you not understanding it, you're gonna have that knee-jerk "this is crap" reaction, right?
Yeah, and when you start using it and you're not totally familiar with it, it's crap.
Right, and until you relax and figure out what the other guy was thinking, and then maybe it is crap, but whatever.
It is crap.
Java is Java's old, right? It shows its age. It is religiously OO, meaning that everything's an object, period, end of discussion.
Yes.
Which is kind of cumbersome and stupid.
Religiously so.
It loves its verbosity, although I write Objective-C and you want to talk verbose, we can talk verbose. Hell, Java's pretty terse compared to Objective-C. Just going to throw it out there. I don't hate it. Now, I will say that I don't like some of the Java frameworks, like Java EE. If you're working on a Java EE program, that's probably crap.
So Jed linked this Quora thread, why do many software engineers not like Java? And it's got some great answers, he says. 66 answers so far. He said one that has 267 upvotes. For a small project, there's a lot of boilerplate, and it takes longer to get things done quickly. I suspect that most of these developers don't work at a company where code needs to be maintained for several years by different people.
Yeah.
Java excels at these type of projects.
Yep, because it's legible. Though I would say that if you're looking for a faster kind of development model, more akin to like a Rails or something like that, check out Java Play. I think I've talked about it a few times on the show, and it lets you mix and match Scala in there too if you're a hippie.
Yeah.
Honestly, try it. Right, give it a try because you get a lot of the advantages of a familiar language to you because everybody learns Java, and a lot of that Rails like how do you say, Chris? Like the kind of just like the speed, right? The ease of development.
Oh yeah, the frictionless ease, right?
I haven't had enough high-end coffee today, so I can't do it.
You've been drinking the cheap stuff today, Mr. Dominic?
Yeah, I've been drinking tea. I'm feeling quite.
I'm on Diet Coke. I don't know I don't know if is that a side grade, a downgrade?
That's a big downgrade.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, I certainly agree with Jed that C# is Java done correctly, right? I mean, isn't that true? Chris, you would agree with that.
Oh, I'm going to avoid that one, but my instinct is to agree.
It's true. I mean, I'm not a huge Microsoft
the reason
fan,
the reason why I shy away from that is because I made that statement a couple of years ago and then proceeded to get hate mail for a year. So because people who are truly into it feel like that's an insult, really. So I don't know.
I know.
I agree with you, but I don't officially agree with you.
It really, really is. I mean, the best part of Xamarin is C#. I'm just going to throw it out there. And the worst part of Xamarin is Xamarin. So, actually, it's Xamarin Forms is the worst part. Why? So I'm going to turn this around on you, Jed. Why is it important that everybody hate Java to you? Because, I have very similar criticisms to this for PHP.
Yeah, see, to me, this is the key point. It's a language, and every language has its strengths and weaknesses. There's no perfect languages.
I mean, think about this. There's all these giant Rails applications being written now. Give it 2-3 more years, and Rails is going to be the horrible legacy platform that all the cool kids. Actually, it already is, right? Because I mentioned Rails to somebody just as early as towards the end of last week, and I got we're using Node. Kind of.
Here's some wisdom. Given that for any task, some languages will be better than others, this is always going to occur. And of course, some languages will be bad at all tasks. And then they become the butt of programming jokes.
Like PHP?
Oh, that's what I was going for. All right, Mr. Dominic, is there anything else we want to cover today?
Yes, I actually have a listener was awesome 2 weeks ago, and I took a little while to take a look at his app. His name is Philip. I don't know if he wants me to give his last name, so I'm not going to.
Okay.
He developed a iOS app that tied. Do you remember CodeShip? We had their CTO on.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
4 or 5 months back.
Yeah.
You wrote an iOS app that ties into your CodeShip deployment,
No.
your CodeShip instance rather, and lets you on the go kind of monitor your deployments to see if there's issues. Very cool. It is
looks
iPhone
good too.
design,
Look at that.
Yeah, it runs on the iPad as well. I think it's like $5. Very, very good. He sent me a test flight.
It's $2. $1.99.
$2. So super affordable. For $2, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, this looks really good. So it's called CodeShip Manager by Philip, and we'll have a link in the show notes, or just go search for CodeShip Manager in the App Store. And the iPad UI, the iPhone UI looks really tight.
I like the iPhone UI a lot better, but it's still it's very functional on the iPad. I tried it on an Air, and I would also like to take the opportunity. If listeners, especially young listeners, if you have an app, have an open source project, you want to send it in for one of us to look at.
Totally.
Definitely do it. The only thing is if it's commercial, send a promo code because we can't buy everything.
Yeah. Coder Radio at JupiterBroadcasting.com. Also, Philip also has made a DigitalOcean manager.
Yes, he did.
Look at that.
I didn't try that yet, but I tried the
Whoa, look at that. And give you a map of where your server's at. How cute is that? And
visit and pet your server.
Yeah, and then you can pull up. You could reboot PowerCycle shutdown and manage your DigitalOcean droplet. This is pretty cool, Philip. You can create a new server from the app. Okay, 2015, man. Spinning up a frickin' virtual server from an app on your smartphone. 2015. Wow. That is amazing. Well, good work, Philip. It'll be linked on his on this CodeShip manager page. All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, even though we didn't get to see you, I'm still glad you were well enough to join us for Monday's edition of the Coder Radio program. We'd love to have you join us. Come over to the jblive.tv page. We do this show on Mondays, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you'd like to send people this week?
Straight to the fiery chasm of hell.
That makes sense. I say we kill off this whole batch of listeners and start afresh next week. What could go wrong? No, don't do that at all. Don't do that at all. Horrible idea. We love you guys. In fact, go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and send us in your feedback. Go to coderradio.reddit.com to make this show even better. And like I said, we'll see you next week. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here. Next week.
Next week. Oh, no, you won't. Till at the conference.
Oh, no show next week?
We have to reschedule it.
Okay. jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar.